Dimebag would have been awesome on TikTok, any of those things. Like he was kind of the original vlogger to begin with. My early bands, we all carried cameras around just because we wanted to be like Pantera.
Rock, metal, prog, and everything in between. Welcome to this episode of Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. Don't forget to follow the audio-only Talkin' Rock podcast on all podcast platforms. And now, it's time for today's conversation. Here's Meltdown.
How you doing, man? See you.
I'm doing well, man. Nice to see you.
Have you had anybody interview you on your own podcast before?
Ooh, on my own podcast? I don't. Well, maybe, yeah. Actually, yeah, because when I was doing New Pod for Knotfest, my co-host at the time interviewed me because of obviously the Primer 55 angle. So yeah, in kind of a weird way, I think maybe once it's happened.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, that's right. I forgot all about that. So yeah, you did the stuff for the for Knotfest, and the artists just come over. Did you know you were interviewing beforehand?
Yeah, I even with that show and everything on Knotfest, I still booked myself. So okay. Yeah, it was Knotfest by name, me by everything behind the scenes.
Yeah, because I've been to places like, when it used to be Rock on the Range and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you're like, they come up to you real fast. They go, hey, can you interview so-and-so? And you're like,
oh, yeah, no, yeah, I've definitely been there.
Yeah, and it's like, then you got to kind of start pulling stuff out of your ass. But how many episodes have you done of a Talk Toomey?
Roughly 500 and something. Like, yeah. I lost count a long time ago when I stopped, I stopped a long time ago doing episode 381, right. Blah, blah, blah. And I just started naming them, whatever the guest was. And I think there's like 550 something uploads, but that's still like, that's short stuff, that's specials, that's, things here and there. So yeah, about 550, I would say.
Yeah. And I'll ask you the same questions everybody asks me. Who are the worst people interviewing? I get that all the time. You don't have to answer that question. I'm just teasing.
No, I mean, the only like, real thing I've noticed over the years, and I'll keep it vague, but like the pros, like, if you have an interview set up with them at 2:00, they show up at 2:00, they give you a good 30 minutes and they're gone, or however long you have with them. They're not late. They're not yes, no, maybe, giving short answers. They do tend to give good answers. And it's funny, like the bigger the artist, be it a David Ellefson or somebody, will come in, give you great conversation, and then get right out in their allotted time. And some of the younger bands kind of coming up, they're late, they forgot what time it was, they forgot this, can we reschedule? And sometimes I look at it, I'm like, that's why you guys stay at that level. Like, you're just not a pro when it comes to even just stupid stuff like my podcast or whatever. No matter who it was, Jason Newsted, boom, he popped up at whatever allotted time. He gave me an hour. At the end of the hour, he was like, thank you for your time, and he moved on. So I mean, like I think that's a lesson that maybe younger bands can learn is be pro, have some good stories ready to go, even if the interviewer may or may not ask you about them. Weave them in, make it interesting, make it fun for everybody.
Yeah, I find that some of the you talk about some of the pros and some of the guys have been around, like the Alice Coopers and the Gene Simmons, David Coverdale's, even like Rob Halford's. You can ask them a question, and they may not answer the question, but they will give you an answer.
Right. But that's we met through David Ellefson and whatnot, and it's funny interviewing him over the years, and that's how the David Ellefson show came about, because I just at the end of our interview, I'm like, dude, you need your own podcast. Like,
right.
I was he's a great talker, he's a great storyteller. Every time he says anything, he gets blabbermouth, he gets all the metal sites. I'm like, dude, you need those clicks for yourself. And he sat there for a second in a very David Ellefson way and goes, all right, let's do this. And I was just like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing a podcast with David Ellefson now. And I went upstairs, and my wife always asked me, she's like, how was the interview? Even though she may or may not know who I'm interviewing. And I just kind of looked at her and I go, I think I have a podcast with David Ellefson now. What's great is, I kind of pitched him on an idea of kind of know what we're doing now of like a 20-minute, he could talk about whatever he's doing, Bass Story or Kings of Thrash, or, plug the coffee or the basses or something. And then maybe do like a quick story about a certain Megadeth song or something. It was going to be quick, like 20 minutes. He could just call in from the road or wherever he was. And it immediately went to, hey, we should interview people, and we should do this and we should do that. And, hour episodes later, 2 hour episodes later, he's fully invested in being a podcaster. It's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, and it's cool because he's only got 87 other things that he's doing. So,
Right. But it's great. I mean, but he makes time. We've I don't know if you've ever had a co-host or really dealt with that, but they can kind of be a pain in the butt. Trying to, hey, can you record on Tuesday night with this certain person? Oh, I've got soccer. My kids have soccer. Just anything going on. With David, he's like, we've done episodes where like the guest is in California, I'm in the Southern Indiana, Louisville area. David's in Germany, it's just like, and we're coordinating, time zones across the world. And it is crazy how everything's kind of coming together with that.
Yeah, no, it is. We live in a different, world. I'm a lot older than you. And when I started doing this business and stuff, it's like, first of all, I did interviews live on the air. I remember I interviewed Lars from Metallica live on the air one time, and that's another story for another time. But then of course it went to audio, and now you got the video component and all this other stuff. But you know what? It's fun, and you get to reach out to people, and in a weird way, you become part of the community that you wanted to be part of growing up. Now, I don't play a lick of an instrument, but I guess in some weird way, I'm a small part of the rock community.
Oh yeah, it's been fun kind of just being on that side for so long because, in all honesty, I never ever thought that Primer 55 would ever get back together. Obviously with our singer passing away and our guitar player had some health issues there for a little while. And so I was just like, I'll probably never play live again in a band situation like that because I'm in my mid 40s now. And I'm like, the thought of like starting a band right now sounds crazy. But I've done some stuff, like jam nights and things like that. I've gotten up and done those, and those do kind of, scratch that itch to get on stage and play some songs and do some things here and there. But yeah, just getting back on stage after all these years is wild. But, being, in the metal media world, you're on Blabbermouth constantly. I'm sure you've seen my stuff constantly on there too, and it's like, and that's been kind of fun, and it's kind of hard to kind of compartmentalize. Like on this side, I'm a member of the media, and on this side, I'm a member of a band, and it's kind of wild to kind of live in both of those worlds, and kind of now I kind of have to really worry about what I say or who I talk about because maybe we get offered a tour with those guys, and I have to and so, there's been a few like they've talked about. Hey, what would you guys think about touring with this band? And I really have to rack my brain. And I'm like, have I ever talked, bad about them on my podcast over the years? Like I have to really like think. I was like, do I need to go back and delete anything? So yeah, it's been fun, kind of being in both worlds, and just kind of getting to be in the media world because as a kid, I'm always going to be a fan. Like I'm fan first, and then whatever comes after it's gravy. So, growing up reading Metal Edge and Metal Maniacs and, just reading anything I could get my hands on and then, watching Headbangers Ball and just diving into all that stuff. And then now, getting to interview Ricky Rackman, some of those interviews, I know, people love or hate Ricky Rackman, but to me, I was 12, 13, 14 when he was on Headbangers Ball. So like, that was like, he was the coolest dude ever. So, I know he downplays his mark in the music world, but man, those Headbangers Balls were influential for me. That's where I found out about Pantera. That's where I found out about a bunch of bands. So yeah, it's been cool to kind of be able to interview the heroes, be it media, be it music and whatnot. So it's been a fun time.
Yeah, it's funny when I get a text message and it says like, "Do you want to interview Alice Cooper?" I'm like, "Is this a real question?"
Right.
It's like, no, I'm gonna pass.
Yeah.
But but no, it's crazy. Like where my world is coming and yours as well. Hey, how the shows go so far that you guys have done?
Dude, honestly, it's been wild. Like I joined the band in 2002. We did some good touring back then. We kind of like reformed in like 2007 when they put out like a B-sides record, and like nobody cared. Like nobody, like the shows were sparse, and it was kind of just kind of at a downturn. The nostalgia factor hadn't kicked in yet. Everybody had kind of moved on to like metalcore and things like that. Musically, and so when it came time to do these shows, I had kind of been bugging our guitar player for a few years. I'm like, because I'm in it. I'm in it every day. I'm interviewing bands. So, as soon as pre-interview, post-interview, they're always like, dude, I listened to Primer 55 in middle school. And, just kind of seeing that era of bands coming back around again. And then I start seeing, Spine Shank and the Union Underground and Dry Kill Logic on Rockville and Louder Than Life. And I'm like, I was like, Primer was right in all that. I was like, we should do something. And then finally, but Bobby had some health stuff, and he came out the other side with that, and he was like, it was basically, all right, man, let's do a show. And I was like, all right, well, if we do it, I was like, let's find a booking agent. And through the podcast and just through talking with people, I reached out to Mikey Doling of Snot and said, hey, who's booking your shows? Because similar situation, a band of that era, singers passed away, coming back around. Like there were a lot of kind of similarities to Snot and Primer 55. And he hit me up with the booking agent. I kind of cold emailed him and said, hey, would you want to book a Primer 55 25th anniversary show of the first record? A, he might not know who we are, or B, he might be into it. And luckily it was B. So a show turned into like 8 shows in 9 days, which turned into we're about to leave and go do a month with Smile Empty Soul, which is going to be crazy. We just announced some December shows. The dates haven't been announced, but a South America run with El Nino and Head PE was just announced. We got announced for Welcome to Rockville. It's just like every day, like my email or my text messages or something is just blowing my mind. But and back to just the original, the original first run of shows, we were kind of curious to see who would come out to these shows, what the reception would be like. And even down to when we were talking about merch, I was like, man, we're just gonna need like large through like 4X t-shirts because everybody's older now. Everybody needs a bigger t-shirt. And Bobby was like, no, man, let's get, we need smalls and mediums and for the kids. And I'm like, there's not gonna be kids at these shows. And it was 50-50. It was teenagers, people in middle school, high school. Like it was the weirdest thing because you would walk out and there would be the whole front would be young kids singing deep cuts of the first record. And I'm like, how, like, I want to stop the show and be like, how did you guys find this band? Like what part of the internet are you guys on to find Primer 55 in 2025? And when I was a kid, when I was 15, 16 years old, back to David Ellefson, I was a kid that hung around the buses and waited all day and hours upon hours just to see like a glimpse of somebody cool. And like I caught a few kids doing this run. Like I walked out to go grab some food when we were in Texas, and a couple kids standing outside, and I could just see it on their faces, like they were pumped to see me. And I was just like, what? So I stopped and I was like, well, I kind of like nodded at them and said hello, and I kept walking. And then I'm like, dude, turn around and go talk to those kids. And not that I was like big timing them or anything. I initiated the conversation, and they were 14, 15-year-old kids standing outside the venue, hoping to get stuff signed. And I was just like, what world are we living in that people are pumped to see this band again?
No, that's great, man. And the tour, like you mentioned, starts up again coming up Saturday at the Machine Shop, which is kind of insane to say, but that's my 30th anniversary at this radio station.
I saw that, man. That's wild.
Like insane, right? So, but anyways, then the second night, you guys are going to be in Cadillac, and of course, you're talking about Ellefson. Are you going to go see the Kiss Monument at the school?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I saw the tour dates, come through, I saw Cadillac, and I was like, well, I was like, I guess the football team's having a tough time, and they need us to come up there and boost their spirits or whatnot. But yeah, man, I'll definitely. I'm a massive Kiss fan. One of the reasons I play any instrument is because of Ace Frehley, rest in peace. And so yeah, I will be actually when I just saw Ellefson a couple of days ago, and we talked about that. I was like, how far is the the Cadillac, memorial or whatever, from the venue? And he's like, dude, it's like 5 minutes. I was like, all right, I'm going. I've got to go to that.
I may have to meet you guys up there because I was telling him that I was going to go up for all the anniversary stuff in the beginning of October, and I had these computer issues, and I couldn't bust out of my house early enough on that Saturday. But it's about a 3-hour drive from me, so if I can get my stuff done, I may have to make the trek up there because I've never been up there either to check it out. And of course, at the passing of Ace, I saw David's picture. They got like flowers and stuff around that memorial now too. So,
yeah, this again, I said like, this was supposed to be one show, and now like I'm planning on going to Cadillac, Michigan to see the 50th anniversary of them playing up there, kind of memorials and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely I'm like in an indefinite pinch me mode. And back to the David Ellefson show and things like that. I had talked to my wife late last year, and just I don't know if you get this way. I get kind of not burnout, but just kind of like what I'm gonna take some time off. I'm gonna do something else. And 10 years of the podcast, it's been fun. I got paid well from Knotfest. We get it's fun to get blabbermouth headlines and the craziest they pull the craziest stuff they can find from our shows and things like that. And I was like 10 years is a good round number. I just hit it back in September. So I was like, I'll make it to 10 years of the podcast, go off into the sunset, say thank you, good night. And I just happened to back in January ask David if he wants to do a podcast. And I was like, all right, well, that's bringing me back in. And then Bobby pops up and he's like, hey, do you want to do some shows? I'm like, well, I guess that's bringing me back in. Like I was trying to quit all of this. And like, now I'm doing more than I've done in 30 years, like out of nowhere.
Now, Dee Snider talked about this, with the passing of Ozzy and whatnot. And he thought, I'm going to put the band back together. Do you think that might have something to do with Bobby trying to get things back together as well after getting a scare like that?
I would think so. I think that I would hope so. I mean, I would, that would kind of show everybody kind of everybody's mortality and things like that. But I mean, he was also not, like I said, I was kind of in the trenches and seeing all of the new metal stuff kind of coming back. And I don't think he was seeing that on a daily basis like I was. So I think he was more hesitant going out on these last shows than I was, because I assumed there were going to be people there because the groundswell of this band over the years, the undergroundness of the band is kind of coming to a point where people were wanting to check it out again. I don't know if Bobby was seeing that as much as I was. So I think he was, tepid to go out. But I mean, we had to reorder merch 2 days into the tour. Like we were going to run out. And like, I had to call my guy and, get another 100 shirts overnighted to another club so that we could, so that we didn't run out of merch by the end of the run. Like, I mean, the shows were very well attended, and everybody was buying shirts and posters and stickers and just everything else. This is the best. I'm not going to say version of the band, because obviously with Jason passing, that that we'll never have that back. But this is the best like business version of the band, because 20 years ago we were all drinking and doing whatever and not focusing on the business side of it. We were all chasing ladies and all that nonsense. And so like this time we're all married men going out, all right, we can, treat this as a proper, touring business and, make a few bucks, but also just have a good time and just really bask in what's going on. So yeah, I think Bobby had the health scare and, hey, let's try it one more time. Let's see what happens. And I know from just the talks that we've all had, the band sat down after the last show and just, we all looked at each other like, what just happened? Like that was like, none of us expected the fanfare and the kids and the singing along and the merch sales and just everything was so positive for this first run. So I'm excited to see what happens with this run with Smile Empty Soul.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're starting off at a great place. Have you played at the Machine Shop before?
Yeah, we actually played there, I think in 02. I would assume it was a very like, I think the venue opened in 02, but I think it
was pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. We played there, like November of 02. And then technically we were supposed to play there, in 2007, but that's like that was like, I think that was the first show after our singer just left the band. So we were just he left us mid tour, and we were just kind of like, well, I guess. I remember we went to the show, but we didn't play the show. But yeah, I've been to the Machine Shop a couple of times, and obviously of all venues in small towns, for that one to be so like world famous, like just everybody's always wearing the shirts. Every show there's seems to be sold out. It's like such a hub for music to be, kind of what is Flint technically a suburb of Detroit? Would that
Yeah, well, it's an hour away. It's
be okay?
yeah.
Okay.
But you talk about people wearing the shirts. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I know you're a Pantera fan. I see your Cowboys from Hell tattoo and your Pantera guys
Yeah.
behind you. Vinny Paul was buried in a Machine Shop shirt. Did you know that?
Oh wow, I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, VP. He was a good dude. When you go in there, you can see some of they've got some hell yeah stuff on the wall in Kevin's
Nice.
office that you can check out. But yeah. So when did you discover Pantera?
Um, I got into them, maybe technically a little late. It was actually a Headbangers Ball. They did a special on Far Beyond Driven. I would have been 15 at the time, and I just like I watched them. I used to tape Headbangers Ball like every week, and then just watch it constantly through the week and
Yeah.
watch the videos and the interviews, and they did a whole special where Ricky and those guys went down to the Texas Stadium, and they're kicking field goals, and it's just something about, like, obviously the music's great, but the guys themselves were so much fun. I've said so many times on my podcast over the years, like Dimebag would have been awesome on Instagram Reels and TikTok and things like if you would have gave Dimebag Vine or any of those things, like he would have been just loving life, because I mean he was kind of the original vlogger to begin with, and like with the vulgar videos and things like that. And so, I have to thank him for, my early bands, pre-primer. Like we all carried cameras around just because we wanted to be like Pantera. So I have so much footage of me at like 18, 19 years old playing these crappy bars and things like that because of Pantera, because we thought, we're going to document all this stuff and make fun videos and things like that. So yeah, I got into them. It was like the weekend that Far Beyond Driven came out. And then I got to meet them doing the, like I said, kind of stalking the buses thing. 1994, I'm 15 years old. We saw Big Val in the hotel part in the hotel lobby, and you knew all of the Pantera crew because of the videos. So we walk up to him, and he's like, you guys be cool, and they'll be cool, and all this other stuff. So finally, I went into the bathroom, and my friend busted open the door. He's like, Dimebag's checking out of the lobby right now. And, I turned the corner and I saw the big pink beard. And, we went and got photos. And thank God, a friend of mine back then used to carry one of those like 35 millimeter cameras around with him. And like, I have so many cool photos from back then, obviously camera phone and all that stuff. So luckily, he carried a camera, and I have photos with me and Vinny Paul and Dimebag and Rex and Phil and just everybody from back then. And so yeah, I got to meet him then, and I met him throughout the years up until I Damage Plan came through Louisville, where I live now, and I almost didn't go to the show. I wasn't the biggest Damage Plan fan. A friend of mine had like an extra ticket. He's like, come out to the show, let's have some fun. And so we go to the show. It's a great show. They actually closed with Walk in a New Level. And they said something. I remember Dime said something like, we're not the reason that we're not playing these songs for you, or something like, just kind of throwing some shade at Phil and all that stuff. And as we were leaving, I look over and I see a crowd of people, and they're all standing around Dime. And this is 10 years later, almost to the exact day. It was August 94 when I first met him, August 2004 when I last saw him. I had this really weird closure conversation. I'd already toured in Primer. I thanked him, I was like, thanks for the inspiration. I got, I kind of told him what I had done, and he was like, oh man, that's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And like had a really cool closure kind of conversation. And then a couple months later, he was taken from us, man. So, but yeah, Dimebag, I probably met him, 10 times over the years. And for me being a little kid up to my early 20s, man, he could not have been nicer and welcoming and cool to everybody around us, including myself.
Yeah, I'm lucky. There's a whole generation of people out there that have never seen and never will see Pantera. I mean, Zach's out there and Charlie, and I'm not taking anything away from those guys, but you know what I'm talking about. And it's like I saw him and I got to interview him as well. I interviewed, those guys, I think in January of 04. So they were just kind of starting out with the Damage Plan thing. And then the last time I saw Vinny is actually pinned on my Twitter or my X because I just can't seem to take it off. But it's like, we were in Vegas and, Vinny had been overserved a little bit.
Nice.
And it was his idea to start a video. So I was like, all right, let's start a video. And so, but
the last time I talked to Vinny, I grew up around Chris Kael from Five Finger Death Punch. Like
I know him. We
played a ton of shows together back in the day. And actually, even in one of my early bands, like when I left to go to Primer, he actually took my spot in my old band, and then obviously kept in touch. He was the best man at my first wedding, things like that. So like we've been very close over the years. And I texted him one day. I was like, "Hey man, do you know anybody with Hell Yeah, so I could go to the show?" And he's like, "Just go with me." And I'm like, "All right." And he happened to be in Louisville at the time. We go back and Vinny's after the show. Vinny's holding court downstairs, telling all these great stories. It was right after they played Rock on the Range. That was the first time he had been back to Columbus, Ohio, and so he was talking about how he was almost more annoyed by everybody asking him how he was that day, rather than obviously being in Columbus, Ohio, because he said yes, it was hard on him, but it was also awful because everybody that he saw, he's like, "Are you doing okay today? Everybody okay?" He was almost annoyed with everybody talking to him. But so yeah, man, I got a nice chat with him, right before he, maybe a year or two before he passed too. So and again, Vinny was always great to me too.
Yeah, he was great. He used to text me all the time about hockey. That was nice. That was our thing, and that's another story for another time. Well, listen, Joshua, great to make your acquaintance. So we're going to push everybody towards the Machine Shop coming up on Saturday as I record this with Smile Empty Soul, the 25th anniversary celebration, the introduction to Mayhem with Primer 55. And thanks for taking the time and continued success. All right, maybe we'll see you Sunday up in Cadillac.
There we go. This is going to be good times, man. Thanks for having me. This has been great.